A feature that I really like about digital mixing consoles nowadays is something called Focus Recall and Scene Safe. On the Yamaha DM7 that I have in front of me, they use Focus Recall. And what it's saying is saying inside of a scene, when you recall this scene, what parameters do you want to recall? On some digital mixing consoles, you can only, inside of a scene, recall everything. You can't say, I want you to ignore this. As you get to more higher end digital mixing consoles, you can say, I only want to recall these parameters inside of a scene. So a natural question would be like, how is this useful? So when our team shows up, the first thing that they do is they reload the master scene, and then they'll say, hey, who's playing electric guitar and what type of guitar rig do they have? Is it stereo? Is it mono? Are you using a mono amp in the back? And all of those have different inputs. And then they can come just hit the stereo electric button, and it will change all of the patching for the in-ears and for the front of house patches. And they don't have to worry about any of the patching in the floor. Benefit to that is that you can then stack them or you can change them and it won't mess with anything else for front of house. The way to set this up is that if you go into these scenes, you can see that I have focus enabled. And if I go into set, like for example, this stereo electric preset, if I scroll up, you can see that I'm only recalling the patch and I'm only recalling the pan to stereo. So that means any of the EQs that I do, any of the compression that I do, none of that is going to be affected by recalling this scene. It is only going to change the patch and whether it has a stereo image or if it's mono right down the middle. Another really cool aspect of this is then you can stack recalling scenes, because if I recall this stereo electric scene, and then if I go and recall my drums Terry scene, that drums Terry scene is only going to recall the drums. It's not going to look at the electric guitar changes that we just made. So here you made an electric guitar change on these channels, and then you made on the second scene a change on the drum channels. Now both of them are live. You've retained that change they made with stereo channels, and then everything is live. Where this doesn't make sense, and where I don't recommend doing it, is sometimes you'll start doing this with just one channel at a time. And that's when you'd want to use your channel library instead. So like for a vocal, I wouldn't use a scene to be dedicated to recall just the processing or the patching for that vocal. You can totally do that inside of the channel library itself. But this has saved me a ton of time, and it's also a lot easier to train for. If volunteers show up and say, I don't want to think about patching, and you are dedicated to the musicians on stage using the same inputs on stage week to week, but have different configurations for the instruments or different playing styles for the instruments, Focus Recall can be a really helpful tool to do that. Allen & Heath products use something called Scene Safe, which is like the opposite. It's saying, what do I not want to save into this preset? So you just kind of, it's the inverse of Focus Recall. Let's see an example of Focus Recall in action. So if I wanted to set up a scene from ground zero, I would start with creating a new scene by hitting store. Let's say that Nick, who is filming today, we're making a preset for his drums, and we'll just call it Nick Drums. Easy enough. Whatever your name or numbering convention is for scenes, go ahead and add that. And then you can add in a comment. This is for Focus Recall or whatever you'd like to put there. I'm just going to leave in master because it's just left over from the last scene that I made. So I'm going to hit store. And you'll see that that pops up in my list. In order to get to focus, you'll usually see comment show up first, but you'll just see, tap that little focus button. We want to enable focus for this scene. And then next we're going to jump into set. Nick is a drummer, so we're only going to want to recall drum parameters. So we're going to come down and manually turn on only all of the drum channels. Sometimes people can come in and they say all. If you scroll down, you'll see that that is enabling recall for all the other channels as well. We don't want that. We only want all of the drum channels. Okay? Secondly, a lot of the patching isn't going to change. For our house kit, the same lines are used every single week, even if drum heads are switched out. So I'm going to leave the patching as it is. I'm not going to recall it. I'm going to leave the naming convention as it is because we're not going to be changing mics or anything like that. but we are going to select a lot of other parameters that are going to change depending on who is drumming. How hard are they hitting it? What is the tonality? And we might make slight changes to EQ or the dynamics processors. And so I'm just going to go through and select everything that I would usually do in this scenario. So obviously, put all this to your context. If you don't need to recall the names, or if you need to recall a different parameter, do what makes sense for you. But hopefully this can give you an idea of how the tool works. Something to note is you can see that there are 3 little dots right here. That means that something in that line for the inserts has been selected. This is really helpful where if I scroll down and I have, like, let's say that the synth bass is selected on that 2 mix, when I'm only looking at this top section, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be recalling anything in the 2 mix. I can hit it to all, and then I can hit it off. So I just want to scroll through and make sure that I haven't made any other unintentional selections across all of my channels. Once I feel good about that, I'm saying anything that's selected, these are the features that I do want to recall when I recall this scene. I can hit this apply button up here in the top left, or I can hit this X button and it'll ask me if I want to apply my changes. And I'll hit apply. So now I have Nick drums as a focus recall scene that I'm able to bring back. For our team, I want to use user-defined keys to access these. I don't want them to have to go through the scene list and try and find everyone's names. So, under user-defined keys, I'm going to add it into this next drum slot. I'm going to go up to our setup, user-defined keys, and then we are currently on the utility screen over here on the side. I'm on bank 2. I'm going to go to this third assignment that doesn't have anything assigned to it right now. Under scene, direct recall, scene list, 50 Nick drums, I'm going to hit OK. You can see that my naming convention by default is different than what I've set up previously, so I'm going to change that really quick by editing the label for scene recall. I'm going to type in drums, followed by name, Nick. And then I don't need the scene number because I don't think that's going to help my volunteers. So now you can see over here on the side that it's ready to go. Let's prove it and make sure that it's working the way that we would expect it to. So I'm going to drop out of all these menus and I'm going to reload our master scene that the team starts with every week. Next, we're going to recall drums Nick. And let's make some changes to this EQ so that we can make sure that it's working how we would expect it to. So if I take the drum EQ and I change it quite a bit, I can take this dynamics processor, change it quite a bit. Let's go to this compressor, change it, analog gain, digital gain. You can see that there are a number of changes that we've made. I'm going to save this scene. I'm going to update it. You can also do this by, as long as you have the scene active, you can go to update. And all I've done is create that as an option over here for the user-defined keys. So if we go back to our master scene, here's what our original kind of house setup is. If I go to user-defined keys and recall drums Nick, it will recall just his parameters for that scene. What is awesome now is that I can stack these together. So if Nick is playing drums and I know that I have a stereo electric guitar, since neither of them have overlapping what they're recalling, you can select one and then you can select the other. And you can just keep doing that with all of the instruments that have variable change. This is not a recommendation on how you should be managing sources. Like a single mono source, all the vocals, still please use the libraries the way that we always have. But if you're trying to manage groups of channels, this is a great way to do it. I just encourage you to get out there and play with it. See if you can get it to behave the way that you want to. If you have questions or are interested in a system that is capable of doing these types of things, reach out to us at ccisolutions.com.